All right, so we've actually talked about the conversation between Kevin Logan, Christy Winters, and Sargon of Akkad. Now, I really recommend you go watch it in its entirety because it's just a full-on laugh session of how unbelievably dumb Carl Benjamin, also known as Sargon of Akkad, is. And he just gets basically exposed all throughout this conversation. So we've already looked at a couple of clips from this. One of them being that he claims that Donald Trump had won in a landslide, and he gets fact checked. They bring up the numbers and show how he's barely in the bottom, like quadrant of wins in terms of electoral college win shares. And it was so obvious that it wasn't a landslide. And what was really funny about that one was if you read the PolitiFact ruling on that, they got a statement from a political scientist who said, if you are to call this a landslide, the word landslide has no meaning. That was truly an encapsulating statement to me. And it's true because if his win was a landslide, virtually every single win was a landslide. And it just totally defeats the entire definition. And did Carl really know the numbers? Obviously not. The guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and that's the most important thing here. The other clip that we looked at was, and this is something that has been, something that he's been doing for a while now, is he tries to smear the Democrat. This is the worst thing ever, too, because amidst the criticism that we're giving the Democratic Party for not being left enough, this guy is calling them too far left. So it's like this just dumb, unbelievably dumb analysis given in which he's misstating the numbers of Justice Democrats, or just misunderstanding. I don't even know how to word it at this point. Going into office, and then also the failure to understand and comprehend that the Justice Democrats and the other groups like Our Revolution and Brand New Congress, they're not far left. They're just social democrats. Most of the stuff that they want are things already in place in the United Kingdom. Like they have universal health care. Now we want a different form of universal health care, but Medicare for all is still universal health care. And so Carl Benjamin gets to sit in his chair and talk in a country where there's already universal health care. And then he goes on just a tear against people trying to get universal health care in the United States. That's probably the worst part about this sorry excuse of a human being. Now, the clip we're going to be looking at here is also pretty damn funny. This one is really encapsulating of Sargon of Akkad, and it'll tell you what Sargon is really about. And it will encapsulate his entire being within just basically like a minute stretch. So what's going to be brought up to him is one of the scandals recently plagued against him, basically when he asked Jeff Sessions to resign, and then the acting attorney general was likely unconstitutional to be appointed, and it's going to be brought up, and Sarkuk isn't going to have an answer, and I'll explain why that is when we come back.
The topic of the midterm elections because the Democrats won, but that's what we're here to talk about. So
The
I think we should get
I
back to
I agree, the Democrats
for
scrape
instance,
by the skin of their teeth.
getting the power of investigation now in the House. What are your thoughts on investigations of Trump and his family members going forward?
Go wild. Go nuts.
Well, do you think Trump reacted in the way he did by threatening, counter investigations and stuff? Do you think that shows how innocent he is?
I think that just shows that Trump's belligerent on Twitter.
And what do you think about him appointing a replacement attorney general that's unconstitutional because, one, he hasn't been confirmed by the Senate as other cabinet members have who could take up the post, or it doesn't even follow the law on the succession in the Justice Department, which means Rod Rosenstein should be running it. I mean, he's acting clearly
Actually, I don't know. I haven't looked into that.
Well, I think it's something that's important. Like, as a liberalist and someone who's about making sure the laws are correct and followed properly, right, for the fair rule of law to all, right? I think that's something you really should look into because it's a very big constitution.
I'll take that under advisement, Christy, but I determine my schedule, so.
Well, I'm just saying, as a liberalist, this is a perfect
That's fascinating.
for you to have.
That's really interesting. But I'll determine what I look into and what I don't.
Okay, so what do you think?
Correctly, you actually have people email you articles, and that's how you decide what goes into your show. So you don't really pick out what you decide. You have people send it to you.
So if you guys recall and go back to my interview with this guy, he basically said that he had a MAGA hat and that he was a big supporter of Donald Trump. I definitely didn't expect that. It kind of caught me off guard because there's no way you could call yourself a liberal or as he calls himself, some nonsense term like liberalist, where he just made it up. This guy's making his own political terms. Just let that sink in. Anyways, and so what you can infer from saying that you support someone for president, or as who's already a sitting president, which I think he supported during the, or no, not during the election cycle. What you can infer from that is that someone would at least know what the hell they're doing and know about their presidency and keep up with their presidency, right? Yeah, no, that's not the case. And so what was brought up to Sargon is, what are your thoughts on the unconstitutional appointment of the acting attorney general, Matthew Whitaker? Now, this is a very serious issue, because when you're talking about the Mueller investigation, you're starting to get into obstruction of justice charges, because we know that Donald Trump's son is in trouble for possible corruption charges, so he might find himself in an orange suit to match his dad's orange skin. And that's not, never mind. So he's trying to thwart it, and that's why he asked Jeff Sessions to resign. So Jeff Sessions resigned per his request, because they have been totally beefing this whole time, because Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation. And so Donald Trump is definitely in some deep water here, we know, for some obstruction of justice charges. And so anybody who claims to be in any way, shape, or form knowledgeable in any way at all about politics, or if you claim that you're a supporter of Donald Trump, you better know about any of that stuff that I just stated. You have to know about that. So to give some detail on this acting attorney general, Matthew Whitaker, this guy, he wrote an article, I believe, saying that the Mueller investigation has gone too far. This guy's insane. That's also part of the reason why Kavanaugh got appointed, was because he had written, and despite him totally contradicting himself, because Brett Kavanaugh is just a dirty human being all around, but, he had said that, you can't indict a sitting president because, it just causes too much chaos and yada yada. But here's what this New York Times article says. It says, take it from Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, whom Mr. Trump once called his favorite sitting justice. Last year, the Supreme Court examined the question of whether the General Counsel of the National Labor Relations Board had been lawfully appointed to his job without Senate confirmation. The Supreme Court held the appointment invalid on a statutory ground. Justice Thomas agreed with the judgment, but wrote separately to emphasize that even if the statute had allowed the appointment, the Constitution's Appointments Clause would not have. The officer in question was a principal officer, he concluded, and the public interest protected by the Appointments Clause was a critical one. The Constitution's drafters, Justice Thomas argued, quote, recognize the serious risk for abuse and corruption posed by permitting one person to fill every office in the government, which is why he pointed out the framers provided for advice and consent of the Senate. So basically what this means is you can't appoint someone to a principal office like Attorney General. That's one of the highest ranking. That's one of the line of succession, one of the top line of succession, positions. And so what you're trying to tell me is, you can just throw in someone there without Senate confirmation. No, that's unconstitutional. And so anybody who, I don't think Sarkut claims to be a constitutionalist. He's not even American, but loves to comment on American politics. In fact, made a career out of it. But, assuming that he just agrees with lawfulness, because obviously the Constitution is the law of the land. That's the ultimate, it's the supreme law of the land. So you would assume that he would care about something. Forget caring about it, man. At least know about it. Know what the hell you're talking about. If you are going to proclaim that you are in support of President Doofus Trump, the Angry Orange, at least know something about him, know about his administration, know about what he's doing as president, because otherwise you're just a bloviating buffoon, and that's what this guy is. Now, what did I mean by, why this was really telling when I said that earlier? Well, this serves into a bigger point that I wanted to get into here, okay? This guy doesn't know anything. He's legitimately lacking any knowledge about anything, right? Just doesn't know anything. If you go back to the interview I did with him, he didn't know anything about the tax cuts. He didn't understand the Obamacare repeal. I don't even know if he understands what Obamacare is, but he didn't know anything about the tax cuts. The guy doesn't know what the guy's main actions as president are. And when you proclaim your support for someone while simultaneously not knowing what they're actually doing as president of the United States, that's pretty hilarious. You are hilariously dumb, and that's the truth about this guy. So this guy is vapid, right? He goes on these long-winded videos where he talks about SJWs and feminists and blah, 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 over and 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 over again and again and again and again and again over. Like, it doesn't stop. This guy's entire channel is just SJW feminists. Like, the people actually holding power right now are passing tax cuts that go to the wealthy, furthering income inequality, and furthering the deficits, which Republicans claim to care about, by the way. Trump's deficit is absolutely ballooned at this point. You're also talking about a near Obamacare repeal. By the way, they did get rid of the individual mandate, which is what stuck it. That's what held it together. That's the foundation. If you don't have an individual mandate, the Obamacare doesn't, or the Affordable Care Act doesn't function. It doesn't work without that. Without the individual mandate. So he's already gotten rid of that. He's bolstered the Iran deal. He's destroyed diplomacy everywhere. Look at the Israel-Palestine issue. He sent his son-in-law, peak nepotism, by the way. No way that smarmy douchebag should have been appointed to. Legit, this is a conflict that has been going on for like almost 100 years at this point, right? Almost 100 years between Israel and Palestine. And you're going to send some smarmy douche, who, by the way, is a corrupt guy who had business dealings in Israel, because he's your son-in-law, because he's been banging the living crap out of your daughter, is probably the dumbest. It is the dumbest thing you could do. Sarkuk doesn't have anything to say about that. He doesn't have a response. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. It doesn't matter to him. I mean, what does it matter to this guy? And so I'm starting to feel more and more like this guy is another Dave Rubin. Not in that he's a fraud, although I do think that I don't think he's a fraud. I just genuinely think this guy's dumb. But Dave Rubin is definitely genuinely dumb as well, on top of being a fraud, because we looked at a clip of like 3.5 minutes where every statement the guy says is just dead wrong. Whether it be polling data, oh, you never know. Dude, the polling data was on point 2016. The polling data was on point this past election. So what on God's green earth are you talking about? And then he goes, oh, the liberals need to go blue dog Democrat. Are you kidding me, dude? You're so dumb. You're insanely stupid. And then this Sargon guy, going back to the main point that I'm trying to make here, sorry, I kind of got a little off track. Making fun of Dave Rubin is so appealing, so entertaining, and so fun that you just randomly go into that. But the point here being is, this guy is a joke. Like, this guy is legitimately a joke. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He just says things, right? Like, you just saw a clip where he's asked about the unconstitutional appointment of Attorney General, AG, Attorney General. Are you kidding me? That's a huge position in the cabinet. This guy's answer is, you know what the worst thing is? His answer is not to apologize for Donald Trump doing it. No. His answer is literally a non-answer. Like, there is no answer. There's no answer. Because he doesn't know. He doesn't know. I don't even think he heard about it. And apparently, like, people, they said during the podcast that, like, people sent him articles to do videos on that. Oh, that's so funny, because it's probably true. I bet you that his anti-SJW fans just spam him with these random obscure stories, and then he covers them in This Week in Stupid, when he's the one who's stupid. But anyways, the overarching point here being Sargon of Akkad, right? The guy is a massive joke. Don't take him seriously. He's not one to be taken seriously. So if you're a Trump supporter and then you hear this, you probably are cringing, right? It's like when I watch H3 trying to make liberal points. I cringe because he says stuff. Well, I'm not going to get on a tangent there. But if you're a Trump supporter and you're watching Sarkuk make pro-Trump points, I feel bad for you. Unless you're as dumb as he is, which I would hope not. But I would be cringing if I were a Trumpy and I were listening to this doofus who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. By the way, a quick little ending point here. Apparently, he was asked about climate change on, I believe it's the Drunken Peasants, right? And he said he doesn't know about it. He hasn't read about it. So, again, this guy's a total fraud, and he's such a clown. He is just totally a political circus clown at this point.